Did you know it was legal to steal someone's wife in the Middle Ages? How about that? It was also legal to kill someone with your bare hands, but not with a deadly weapon. In fact, a woman could be imprisoned if she didn't obey her husband. Moreover, a husband had the right to beat his wife with a stick that was thicker than his thumb. If he killed her in the process, he could only be charged with manslaughter instead of murder. English people feared that doing chores on the Lord's Day would anger God, so they passed laws prohibiting people from engaging in domestic work on Sundays. In fact, barren women were so humiliated they weren't allowed to enter churches. Concubines were usually younger women who lived with men and bore them children. But unlike wives, they were never part of the family, and their children were illegitimate. Now, this might sound weird, but it was basically the same as having a girlfriend or a live-in partner these days. And it was actually common among both rich and poor people. The Lord's Supper was a sacred Christian ritual that symbolized Jesus Christ's last meal with his disciples. Marrying your cousin wasn't only legal during the Middle Ages, it was actually encouraged. If an heir died before the property owner, the inheritance would pass to the next in line. Even if you were the rightful heir, you had to wait until your father or mother died to receive their inheritance. Otherwise, it would go to the next generation. But what if you wanted to make a will? Well, that wasn't possible either. In fact, there were no real child labor laws until the 19th century. Children as young as 7 years old were put to work in factories and mines, and working conditions for children were almost as bad as they were for adults. In fact, even if a doctor killed a patient, they could easily plead as an accident and avoid punishment. But believe it or not, there were many more restrictions. For example, you could be arrested for making rude gestures or even winking at a woman. Apparently, it was considered immoral and obscene. That's why they were treated in the worst possible way. Madmen were often locked up in mental hospitals where they were subjected to horrible treatments. On the other hand, heretics were accused of denying the existence of God, and they faced torture and execution. At the time, people believed that obscene language and gestures could lead to the devil getting inside your body and corrupting your soul. That's why people were arrested for reading books with nude pictures, playing cards with naked people, and even attending birthday parties. Yep, it was considered immoral to celebrate pagan holidays. Doctors were considered highly skilled professionals whose job was to cure the sick. And it didn't matter if they succeeded or not, they enjoyed a great deal of leeway. Plus, if a parent found their child stealing, they could punish them by putting them to death. Only the king had the power to dispose of their property after death. During the Middle Ages, it was illegal to beg, travel, or sleep in public, and authorities took harsh measures to crack down on beggars and the homeless. For example, they chained people to chariots like horses and whipped them while they pulled the carriage. In fact, there was no law regulating waste disposal, so people did whatever they wanted. They threw their poop and garbage out of their windows, which resulted in countless deaths and injuries. In fact, the streets were so dirty, people had to carry a small shovel with them everywhere they went, so they could dig through the garbage to find food. And if he didn't make a will, the eldest son always inherited the throne. It helped keep wealth and titles within families, and it was an excellent way to forge alliances. In fact, it wasn't uncommon for cousins to marry each other even in the 19th century. Queen Victoria had 8 children with her cousin, Prince Albert, and the royal families of Spain and England are descended from cousins who married each other. That's why it was illegal to eat or drink during the Lord's Supper, even if you were starving or thirsty. And the penalty for drinking water during the ceremony was severe. This was a medieval method of determining a person's guilt or innocence, and it involved subjecting the accused to painful and sometimes deadly tests. For example, in the ordeal of cold water, the accused was tied up and submerged into a tank of cold water. If they were innocent, their body wouldn't react at all. But if they were guilty, they would start shivering, which meant they were hiding something. Other ordeals included trial by fire, trial by hot water, and trial by combat. A person could be excommunicated for committing this unforgivable sin, but most people forget that it was also a law during the Middle Ages. Men were considered heads of the household, and it was their job to maintain order and protect their families. That's why women had to submit to their authority and never question their decisions. Bald women were also mocked and harassed, and they faced severe discrimination. This discrimination eventually led to the emergence of the first wig shops. The weird laws around theft still baffles many people today. Back in the Middle Ages, you could steal almost anything as long as the owner wasn't watching. So if you saw someone's cow grazing in a field, you could just walk up to it, put a rope around its neck, and take it home. This was called a distress damage. If the owner caught you stealing his stuff, you had to return it immediately. Otherwise, you would be charged with larceny. They were even forbidden to light fires, cook meals, or mend clothes. Luckily, these laws never applied to servants because, well, it wasn't like they had anything better to do, and people who did it were severely punished. For example, Pope Gregory IX excommunicated usurers and prohibited them from entering heaven. Things eventually changed when the Catholic Church realized that charging interest was the best way to make money. During the Middle Ages, you could kill someone with your bare hands, but you couldn't do it with a weapon. The reason behind this law is quite absurd. Apparently, weapons were considered an extension of the human body. So killing someone with a weapon was tantamount to killing with one's own hands. Small price to pay for a little bit of wife beating. Well, there were many bizarre laws during the Middle Ages, so let's get started with 20 strange laws from the Middle Ages. Number 20. The coverture. This law existed in England between the 16th and 19th centuries, and it made a woman subject to her husband's authority when they got married. Number 19. Wife selling. As mentioned before, women had no rights at all. And if their husbands didn't like them anymore, they could literally sell them off like property. It was legal to sell your wife in England until 1833, but even after that year, the practice continued in several other countries, including France, Germany, Norway, Switzerland, and Russia. Also, a woman could be sold by her parents or male relatives without her consent. Number 18. Women could not sue. Even if a woman was the victim of assault or battery, she couldn't sue the person who wronged her. However, if a man committed the same crime against a woman and she sued him, court would likely rule in her favor because women back then were considered property and their value depended on their virginity. Number 17. No work on Sundays. Between 1545 and 1920, it was illegal to sweep the floor or do any housework on Sundays. Number 16. Bald and barren women. During the Middle Ages, society judged women very harshly for not being able to bear children. Number 15. Concubinage. During the Middle Ages, it was legal for a man to have a concubine as long as he wasn't married. Number 14. Usury. Charging interest on a loan was considered a sin during the Middle Ages. Number 13. Could steal anything that wasn't attended. Number 12. No killing with a weapon. This one makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Number 11. The Lord's Supper. Number 10. It was legal to marry your cousin. Number 9. Inheritance. A person could inherit their share of property only after dying. Number 8. Trial by ordeal. Number 7. A wife must obey her husband. This biblical quote is often used to justify wife beating. Number 6. Children could be put to death. Believe it or not, children were often put to death during the Middle Ages. Number 5. Deadly nuisances. Did you know it was legal to throw your poop out the window during the Middle Ages? Number 4. A doctor can't be killed. The medical profession was held in high regard during the Middle Ages, and doctors were rarely punished for malpractice. Number 3. Indecent language. Just like today, people could get arrested for indecent exposure during the Middle Ages. Number 2. Vagrancy. Number 1. Madmen and heretics. Society considered both madmen and heretics dangerous to public order. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos.